are now tuned in to the Storm Tracker podcast.
Welcome back, family, to the Storm Tracker podcast. I'm Marcus Benjamin, representing for CanesCounty.com, part of the Rivals.com network. Make sure you subscribe to the website, CanesCounty.com, for free. Use the promo code Miami30, and also subscribe to this YouTube channel, live from Canes County. And this is our Scouting the Opponent episode, where we kind of dive into Miami's opponent for the week, which is Ball State. And I've got Cade Hampton joining me from the Star Press. He covers Ball State, and he's going to give us some insight on the Cardinals. Thanks for joining me today, Cade.
Hey, Marcus. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So first off, I just kind of want to talk to you about being a Dolphins fan, man. I saw that you're a Dolphins fan on Twitter. I'm a Dolphins fan as well. How did your fandom of the Fins start?
Yeah, so my dad, growing up as an Alabama fan, he really liked this one running back named Tony Nathan. And when Tony Nathan got drafted, growing up in Alabama, my dad didn't really have a nearby NFL team to really get into. So he just kind of followed him up to the Dolphins, and then I think Marino joined shortly thereafter. So he's been a fan ever since. He loved watching Marino back in the day. I mean, I was never alive for the Marino era, but I've seen the highlights. That dude could sling it, and yeah, I've been a loyal fan most of my life, and haven't really been rewarded with that. I don't think. I think they last won a playoff game in 2000, and I was born in 2002, right. So I'm still waiting on that one, but I'm excited. They're a fun team. As a Alabama alum, I love seeing Tua and Waddle ball out there. So yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be exciting. But my hopes are not high. I do still think it's. I mean, I think the Kansas City Chiefs are just inevitable at this point. So it's hard to get really excited for an AFC team if you're not a Chiefs fan.
Yeah, I hear you, Cade. You're making me feel a little old just by saying what you're saying, because I watched Marino and I saw that one playoff win, so hopefully there's good things to come. I mean, they are a fun team to definitely watch. Of course, the Miami Hurricanes are a fun team to watch as well, and they are going to, of course, face off against Ball State this Saturday, 3:30 kickoff from Hard Rock Stadium. So just kind of wanted to get some insight from you about Ball State. What are your thoughts on the Cardinals so far this season, with the one game under their belt against Missouri State, a win? Just what generally your thoughts on the Cardinals this season?
Yeah, so they had kind of the unique distinction of being the only team with a week 1 bye week. So while everyone else got started kind of Labor Day weekend, they were just kind of on the couch. It reminds me of that meme of like Squidward looking out the window at SpongeBob and Patrick. And that's kind of how Ball State fans, I think, felt for week 1. But yeah, last week they came out, I think, a little bit slower than they were hoping for. But they managed to, keep their head on straight, hit the ground running, and control the clock most of the game. For most of the second half, they had a solid 2-possession lead, and Missouri State kept kind of chipping back into that. But Ball State, they did a really good job controlling the game, playing their game, not really getting away from their offense, things like that. So, last 2 seasons have been pretty disappointing for the Cardinals. They're still trying to get back to bowl game, contending for the MAC championship, but that hasn't really come together the last 2 years. But I think this year they're, kind of an underdog. They're a little bit slept on. They've got a lot of new faces on the team that I think a lot of people aren't really expecting to make a huge impact or, come together as a unit, but they seem to be really meshing, and they want to get out there and make a name for themselves this year.
Absolutely. Missouri State, though, probably not the toughest opponent to have week 2, technically, for you guys. So I guess, just when a Miami Hurricane fan kind of sees that, they're like, okay, well, they didn't really have a tough test so far. Was it the fact that Missouri State was like impressive to you, or was it Ball State just not impressive on the field as far as like the closeness of that game, because it was a close game?
Yeah, I think Missouri State was a little bit more impressive than a lot of people were expecting because, they are an FCS school, but this is their last year as an FCS school. They're making the jump into FBS. They'll be Conference USA next year. So they haven't been great. They were, not great last year, but they had Bobby Petrino there a couple of years ago, and he was, he had them in a really solid position. So as far as that game, it got started off a little bit shaky. They threw a RPO pass that got bobbled by a receiver straight into the Missouri State defensive back's hands. And he took that back for a pick six. That was their first score. And then, the offense throughout the first half was doing really good, controlling the clock, long time of possession, really long drives. I think they held the ball for like 23 minutes or something of the first half, but they only managed 7 points. So it was just, finishing drives. They missed a field goal that first half as well. So, you want to see a little more consistency on special teams. But, I think just, that first game offense, a little nervous coming out, and they kind of had to get into a groove. And they also, I know we're probably going to get into this a little later, but they had two wide receiver injuries as well this week. They had a guy get injured in practice and another starter get injured. It was like the very first play from scrimmage. So I think losing kind of your top two weapons limited the offense a little bit as well. But, they adjusted well in the second half of the game. The other receivers started kind of getting into a groove, especially with the quarterback. And, so they just kind of had to, shake off a little bit of the rust. And by the time they did and got the offense rolling, it felt like the defense had gotten a little bit tired because by then Missouri State was scoring with ease in the fourth quarter after not really putting together anything offensively in the first three. So, just it was kind of a timing thing. Just the offense was playing poorly while the defense kept them in the game. And then once the offense started picking it up, the defense seemed, just a little bit tired and was giving up a little more than they should have been.
Gotcha. So now after one game, of course, they're 1-0. They face obviously a tough team in Miami, who's rolling right now, top 10 team in the country, according to the Associated Press. What's the feeling around the program? You had a chance to attend or watch the press conference from yesterday from Ball State. So what's the feeling, I guess, around the program before they travel south to play Miami?
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of this week, it's I don't think anyone's really expecting Ball State to go in there and pull off a massive upset of this Miami team. But, I think they're really excited for the opportunity to go and, face a Power 5 team. This is a group that has a lot of experience facing Power 5 teams. They last season started the season at Kentucky and at Georgia as well. So, they've been in these kind of environments before, facing really highly ranked opponents on the road, going in there and being the underdog. So, like I said, I don't think anyone's really expecting them to go in and pull off an upset, but, they're a really confident group. Like I said, they, feel like they're an underdog kind of team, and they're excited, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're really excited to go out and, make a name for themselves and just kind of prove that they've got what it takes to hang around and, make a push for another MAC championship. And, last week we did see, a MAC team and NIU go in and upset Notre Dame in South Bend. So, as unlikely as it is, anything's possible.
Yeah. That's why we love college football, right? Because, anything can happen on any given Saturday or Thursday or Friday.
Yeah.
So give us an idea of the Ball State schemes when it comes to offense, defense. What kind of scheme does Ball State run, first on offense, and then tell me a little bit about what they run on defense as well.
Yeah, so on offense, they've got a new coordinator on both sides of the ball. Though the new offensive coordinator is Jared Elliott, and he was a co-offensive coordinator last year who just got kind of promoted to full-time offensive coordinator. So Kevin Lynch, who was the other co-OC last year, he's still on staff as the assistant head coach and QB's coach. So not really a huge change in the offensive philosophy, just a little bit of a different change in exactly who's calling it. But they run, a lot of different, multiple offensive schemes. They run, mixing a healthy amount of RPOs in there was something I noticed in the last game. They take a lot of quick throws with, they got a young, kind of relatively inexperienced quarterback in Caden Simonza. He's shown a lot of promise, but, he's a redshirt freshman. He only started 3 games last year and has the 1 start under his belt this year. So they're pretty run heavy. I don't want to say, well, run heavy is a bit strong, maybe run reliant. They like to stick to the ground game. They've got a good transfer running back in Braden Sloan. And so on the defensive side, they run a 3-4, and they also have a new coordinator on that side of the ball, and Jeff Knowles, who has MAC experience. He coached NIU to one of the best defenses in the MAC, I think back in 2017, and he spent the last 2 years at Butler in the FCS, and they've had one of the best defenses in that division as well. So as far as defense, 3-4, and they have a pretty unique position I've never seen before on their depth chart called the sniper, which is sort of like a nickel defensive back, but is really heavy in run support and getting down kind of in the shallow zone areas. And George Udo is a transfer from Cincinnati, I believe, who plays the sniper position, and he made some pretty big impact plays against Missouri State. He forced a fumble on a kickoff return, so really solid guy in that spot there. The defense is really kind of a new look defense. Out of the 11 starters, only one of them was a full-time starter last year, Keontae Newsom at the linebacker spot. So really new look group that's still, meshing together. But they, for most of the game on Saturday, they looked really good in shutting down Missouri State's offense.
Okay, very nice, very nice. Sniper, sometimes it's called the star position, sometimes it's called the striker position.
Yeah.
Definitely kind of a nuance, I guess you could say, in college football as far as defenses are concerned. Good stuff as far as the scheme. Now, let's talk about some players and some playmakers. Like, who are the players that Miami should be concerned with on offense first? As far as you talked about Simonza as well. Give me some idea of what his game is like and some of the other playmakers on offense.
Yeah, so as far as Simonza goes, like I said, he only had, the 3 career starts last year, and it was against teams like Kentucky and Georgia, and then he has the 1 start this year. But so there's not really a whole lot of film out there on him in terms of playing at the college level. But, he's a, really, consistent, clear-headed kind of kid. He gets the ball out fast. He's got a, nice kind of quick release. Really, he was reading the field well. I felt like he was making really good reads on his RPOs, getting it to the right guy, making the right decision there. And then another thing that he's kind of talked about is wanting to use his mobility a little bit more. I think he's a little bit faster than you would think looking at him, because he's, a shorter kind of guy. But, he showed some mobility the other day against Missouri State, ran in the first touchdown from 15 yards out. So I think that's something he kind of wants to add to his game. He looks pretty good throwing on the run too. So just using his mobility on like design rollouts, things of that nature. So but that inexperience also is something that that Miami and other teams probably could exploit. But Coach New really likes Simonza. He's really confident in him as the QB1. And, I think he's really excited to develop him over the next couple of years. And then as far as skill positions go, Braden Sloan, who I mentioned earlier, is looking really nice at running back. Ball State kind of has a history of using their one running back pretty heavily with Carson Steele a couple of years ago, who's with the Chiefs now, and then Marquez Cooper last year, who had a really great season. So Sloan's really good. He was an FCS All-American last year, had 1,600 plus all-purpose yards and 13 touchdowns. So for Eastern Kentucky, so he looks really good. Receivers, there's some pretty significant injuries at the receiver position. Justin Bowick was a transfer receiver. He suffered an injury in practice this week. And then Ty Robinson was transferred from Colorado, who he went down on the very first play from scrimmage with what looked like a shoulder injury, and he missed all of last year as well. So that was really tough for him to go down on pretty much his very first play. But if those two can't go, which I'm kind of I mean, we haven't heard too much on that, but from the look of it, it doesn't seem like either of them are going to be able to go on Saturday. Kean Magwood out of the slot was their leading receiver last year. And then Cam Pickett and Malcolm Gilly are two other names to watch at receiver. And they all bring a little bit more speed to the field than, Bowick and Robinson are 6'4", 6'3". They're much more kind of size-reliant receivers. So I think that was another factor in the offense last week, was having to adjust to different play styles with the receivers. So, but they've got a good group there. And then at tight end, they have a really big Tanner Koziol. He led the team in touchdowns last year. He's 6'7", really great red zone target there, and pretty solid blocker in the run game as well. Offensive line, they've got a really experienced group. They had 117 combined starts between them, which I guess is 122 now because they all started another game. But
sure.
They're really experienced, strong group, probably the strongest unit on this team. I know Coach New really likes having that level of experience there. I think it's actually the 12th most experienced offensive line in all of FBS. So that's a big strength of theirs. Ethan Crow at the center position is really solid on those inside runs. And then flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, like I mentioned earlier, Keontae Newsom at the inside linebacker position is kind of the star of the show. He's leadership role. He's flying all over the field, pass coverage, run defense. He's all over the place. And then around him are just 10 brand new starters on this team. I mentioned George Udo at the sniper position. He was a transfer in. And then Miles Norwood, the number one corner, was a transfer from Iowa State. He had a really good game against Missouri State as well. So he's another guy to watch. D.D. Snyder at the safety position is another transfer from Illinois. So they did a good job, getting guys who have played at the Power 5 levels and come in, made an impact, and earned their starting job, and are they're all still kind of meshing together on the defense, learning to play together, developing some chemistry. But I think I think this defense was the more slept on unit than the offense coming into the season because of that factor of them having not really played together and being a relatively new group. And I think, that group especially wants to prove a lot of that wrong, wants to, get that noise out of there and, show hey, we're a unit, we're a team. We can, get out there and play some tough ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Cade Hampton joining me from the Star Press. He covers Ball State. I wanted to ask about Kial Kelly. Hopefully I didn't butcher that first name. But
it's Kial.
Kial. Okay.
Kial,
Thank you for that. Kial Kelly. I mean, he's a guy who played quarterback for the Cardinals last year. Mm-hmm. But from what I read, I saw that he is now a part of that defense. So, just kind of give me an update on him and just that transition. It's kind of an odd one, I guess you could say.
Yeah, Kyle's a really interesting storyline with this team because, like you mentioned last year, after Simonza, they decided to give him a red shirt. After those 3 starts, they decided to redshirt him, let him rest, and let him sit and learn. And then they put Kial Kelly in at QB for the rest of that season. And he's an excellent athlete. He's extremely fast. He's got good ball vision. He put up a really good rushing numbers, but the passing offense last year was just really limited and not really, I don't think, really considered a threat by offenses. And Kyle can, he can throw the ball. It's not that he's a bad, thrower. I don't think teams really viewed it as much of a threat as him running the ball.
Gotcha.
And
so did he play a defensive back last week?
What was that? Sorry.
Did he play a defensive back last week?
Honestly, not that I noticed. I didn't really see him come in at defensive back. He might have gotten a few snaps in on special teams or, here and there in the nickel or something like that. But I didn't notice him come in on defense. But there are still a few offensive play packages with him involved. They ran a couple of plays with a direct snap to him and had him run. And none of them really worked. I think they tried it about 2 or 3 times and none of them really worked. I think the defense was kind of keyed in on oh, hey, Kial Kelly's coming on the field. They're probably going to run it with him. And then he did. Right. And they just kind of crashed in on it. So it kind of reminded me of like when that year Justin Fields spent at Georgia, and Kirby Smart was like, oh, we have this guy, I want to use him. And so he would like put him in, and then everyone's like, oh, Justin Fields is in, he's probably going to run it. And then they would run it and nothing happened. So,
Gotcha.
as far as, Kial, he's a, tremendously talented athletic player. And I think they are still, they are planning on using him in some offensive packages and as a backup defensive back. But I think you want to see them get a little more creative with the Kial Kelly packages, because
Sure.
what we saw against Missouri State, they just kind of threw him out there and let him run, and the defense, kind of knew it was coming. So
Gotcha.
you kind of, maybe would want to see him used as a decoy or something, or run like a design bubble screen or something instead of just like a QB zone run with him. But there's a lot of time for them to figure out how they want to use him and what they want him to do. And he's too athletic and talented to really keep off the field. But yeah, he's he could make an impact in the game. It just is yet to be seen exactly how.
Absolutely. All right. Before we get into just, a score prediction here, I did want to ask, did you get a chance to see Alabama? I know that you're an Alabama alum, so I'm pretty sure you're following Alabama and their season. Did you get a chance to see Alabama versus USF last Saturday?
Yeah, I did. I managed to actually I got out of the Ball State game. It was about 6:45, and the Alabama game was set to kick at 7. So I just kind of scooted to the closest sports bar, pub kind of thing, and had them turn it on the TV there. So I'm not really used to going into a sports bar and they don't have SEC football on anywhere. So that was kind of a bit of a culture shock for me. It was kind of funny, but
I bet.
Yeah, USF, they gave Alabama headaches last year, and they sure did it again. I think that Bulls team is a lot better than people think when they see, Alabama's schedule. There's a non-conference group of 5 team. They see that, they're like, oh, Alabama's just going to go throttle them. But that USF team is, really talented. The front 7 is really athletic and smart and well coached. And, both sides of the ball, their offensive scheme is really good. Their defensive scheme really had Alabama's offensive line in a blender with the stunts and the disguise blitz packages. And it reminded me a lot of kind of a Brian Flores defense from watching the Dolphins, a couple of years ago, just them showing like a zero blitz, and then they back, 3 of those guys off, and they're sending 5, but you have no idea which 5 are coming and where they're coming from. So
sure.
With the offensive line of Alabama being a little inexperienced playing together, I think USF really took advantage of that.
Gotcha.
I was never worried, too concerned that Alabama was going to lose. I always thought they would eventually pull away, which they did. But I am kind of, concerned that USF might have given the rest of the country the recipe on how to limit Bama's offense, which is just blitz them. Like that seemed to really, affect the offensive line and affect Milroe and his whole process and everything. So that's kind of my biggest concern with Alabama coming away from that game, is that the film they just put out, everyone's going to be like, oh, we just have to blitz these guys.
Right. Yeah, I asked about it because Miami's next opponent is actually USF. Just kind of wanted to get an idea ahead of time. Obviously, I'll do this episode again next week for with a USF guy. But just kind of wanted to get an idea of like why they kept it so close with Alabama, and knowing that you're a Tide fan, I figured you'd have some insight, which you did. Thanks for that. And so now back to this game, Miami versus Ball State. I put a prediction out. I preview every game of the season on CanesCounty.com. And this was just kind of based on what I learned from the team in preseason. So I can't say that I watched the Ball State Missouri State game. So that's why we of course had you on, Cade. So based on what I saw, I think this is going to be not a close contest, just because it's, Miami's just got a ton of talent just at the skill position and the offensive line and the defensive line. And Mario Cristobal did also praise the offensive line, just as you did. of Ball State's, just with their experience and the cohesion that they have on the offensive line. I think will give Miami some problems, but Miami's depth on the defensive line is where I think they can kind of maybe overcome that experience and that you know uh, cohesion that the
Yeah.
Cardinals have. So for me, I think this is like maybe a 44-3, 44-10 type of game. What say you on the prediction of the score when the game ends Saturday evening?
Yeah, no, I was thinking something in that, mid to high 40s to, maybe 6, 10, 7, low scoring kind of neighborhood because, like, yeah, with the Ball State defense being, a new unit, still learning to play together, playing against a guy like Cam Ward, the way he's playing as your second game as a unit is a really tough challenge there.
Yeah,
And, especially, at home for the Hurricanes, it's, kind of a recipe for them to just let Cam cook a little bit. So I think Miami will continue to drop big numbers, put up big offensive points, and Ball State. I think with the offense being limited by the receiver injuries, Simonza I think will I think he's a little better than people would expect for a redshirt freshman quarterback. He seemed to just kind of be have a natural feel for the game. So I think, the offense, could find its way into the end zone once or twice, maybe later in the game. But yeah, I'm not really expecting a super competitive one. I think that 44-10 prediction sounds, about right. Which I think the spread is, I think Miami's favored by like 34.5
okay.
on the line. So Ball
That's,
State would 44-10 would get Ball State to, to cover that. So
yeah,
for any bettors listening out there,
I'm pretty sure there are plenty of them. Yeah, I didn't even look at the spread, and I made that prediction before the season started. So maybe I should take a job in Vegas as well and start creating betting lines. But yeah, that's kind of how I see this game playing out. Cam Ward has just been on an absolute heater for the start of the season. He
Yeah,
is,
he has been, really impressive. If you ask me, he's probably, the number one or number two guy for the Heisman right now. I think
yeah,
that Boise State running back, Ashton Gianti, is just cold. He is insanely good. I would probably
yeah.
throw him up there, a little group of five love, but Cam Ward he's on a tear right now. He's playing like the best quarterback in the country.
Yeah. I've been watching it firsthand. I've seen him since spring. I've seen him a little bit in fall camp as well. And there's just so much hype surrounding him, and the fact that he is living up to the hype and exceeding expectations says a lot about him, his athleticism, his
Mhm.
prowess as a quarterback, and just the way he just kind of leads the team has been quite impressive. So I expect that to continue on Saturday against Ball State. Cade
Yep.
Hampton joining me again from the Star Press. Thank you for joining me today and giving us some great insight on this Scouting the Opponent episode here on the Storm Tracker podcast.
Yeah, Marcus, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the guest spot, and I'm looking forward to the game this weekend, and I'm also really looking forward to see just how the Hurricanes finish this season in general. I think
Yeah,
my preseason ACC pick was Virginia Tech as like my sleeper pick, so that has not worked out. They lost to Vandy already, so that
right.
I'm a Nashville native. I know how Vandy is. That was not pretty for them, but
Yeah,
I think Miami they look really good. Like I mentioned, Cam Ward is playing like he's the best in the country, and I think college football as a whole is just better when the U is really good. So I'm happy that they're back, and I'm really excited to see where their season ends up.
that's good to hear from a Bama fan that you're happy that Miami is. Well, I don't even want to say Miami is back because that's kind of almost like a bad phrase down here. Like no
Yeah.
one wants to say that Miami's back, especially at just 2-0. Uh,
Yeah, no,
you
yeah,
know,
not to overhype it a little too much, but I do think they look really good. And as a Dolphins fan, I've always kind of had a little bit of a soft spot for the Hurricanes and just Miami, South Florida sports in general. And it was nice seeing it's nice seeing the Panthers win the Cup, even though I'm a
oh yeah,
Preds fan. I like I just like seeing, South Florida do well in sports because I like that, that good juju flow in for Dolphins season.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully that juju does flow throughout from the Panthers to the Hurricanes and to the Dolphins this season.
Okay.
Thanks again, Cade, for joining me today. That's going to wrap it up for the Storm Tracker podcast, Scouting the Opponent. Make sure you subscribe to the website, canescounty.com, for free. Use the promo code Miami30. Also, follow this podcast on all platforms, and make sure you also subscribe to this YouTube channel live from Canes County. Until the next episode.